John Mackey is an American capitalist and the CEO of Whole Foods. In this segment, I talk to him about why socialism always fails. Why do you think that the left can't sell the idea of socialism?
Because they're a track record. I mean, wherever socialism's been tried, going all the way back throughout all of history to more recently, Venezuela, they all fail. There's no success at all. I mean, socialism fails miserably everywhere it's been tried. So, if you're an academic, you can't use actual real-world examples. So all you can do is fall back on theory. You know what? It just hasn't been done right yet. Romer was making these unbelievable statements like, oh my God, we could raise tax rates to 80% and business people would work just as hard because what else have they got to do? He actually made that argument. What else have they got to do? It's like, I got lots of other things to do than work as a slave for the government.
I've done these videos on the body count of socialism, and Mao killed upwards of 45 million people. With this noble experiment, I'm going to redesign the Chinese economy to be more industrial, and of course,
well, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, Matt. I mean, the funny thing is that capitalism is always accused by the intellectuals of being sort of heartless, ruthless. And yet, again, we don't have the guns. I mean, if you don't like my business, you don't have to trade with it. And in fact, many don't like Whole Foods Market. They think it's too expensive and they trade with other people. Yeah. We have no way to compel people to do it. Those that have guns can force people to disagree with them into the gulags and just rub them out. One of the things that the academics forget is that, I think Hayek talked about how the bad always get on top. That you create these type of coercive power structures, and then these sociopaths are the ones that are going to ruthlessly do whatever it takes, so they're running the machinery. It won't be the kindly, well-intentioned professors. They get pushed aside. Yeah. And the real assholes get in charge of it, and they're the ones that do all the slaughtering.
The Khmer Rouge is an interesting example because it was a bunch of socialist kids hanging out at universities in Paris who said, let's go create this fantasy agrarian society, just like Marx said we could. But they killed a quarter of their population in 4 years. I think it's impossible. So it was a combination of central planners trying to plan and that intellectual hubris that Hayek talks about, which is brutal, vicious power.
That is one of the ugliest truths about socialism, is that because it doesn't work, they're forced to use more and more coercion to force people to make choices they wouldn't make and to control people's lives. And then ultimately, they kill people. Venezuela is a great recent example of this. As the economy spirals down, more and more people get killed, not only from just poverty, but they begin to rub out their enemies.
When I tell these stories on social media, a lot of young progressives will say, that's not socialism, that's oligarchy.
What they like to do is they like to compare a theoretical socialism with a crony capitalistic system. Capitalism is always compared with its flaws against a socialism that has never existed and never will exist, that's simply a theoretical construct. When I argue with a socialist, I always say, we've got to talk about the real world. And in the real world, socialism's never succeeded.
They always come back and say, we'll get it right next time.
We're going to get it right this time. Just give us the power. Yeah. Let us have the power, and we will create a utopia where there's no inequality. At the end of the day, they don't care about that inequality. That's just a marketing pitch. Because in fact, communism doesn't decrease inequality. It just sets up an elite socialistic, and the intellectuals now are on top, and they have their own stores and their own hospitals, and they're certainly not equal. They're at the top of the hierarchy, which makes me cynical, thinking one of the reasons intellectuals hate capitalism is, well, they're not that high in the social hierarchy, and they feel like they ought to be.
Well, I actually heard that in the debate yesterday. He very arrogantly said, well, you're just a businessman, I'm an academic.
It was in the Q&A and somebody asked me, have you ever run a business?
Yeah.
It was like, no. Why would I stoop to such a low thing as that?
Yeah.
I'm a professor.